so we're talking about agents coming onto the team and the process they go through your initial training and then getting onto Zillow. And Chris, you were saying about the fellow and your lead pond. So is that to say then that you want them to have some level of activity? What's the prescription there that you ask them before they come into the Zillow world?
Nicole, when people are once people are onboarded on the team, do you mind sharing how are they selected to be part of the Zillow onboarding and the Zillow certification?
Sure. So it just depends on how experienced they were when they came in. So if you're a brand new baby agent on our team and you haven't even been on a listing appointment or haven't taken on a buyer yet, we're probably not going to throw you into Zillow in your first week on the team. If you're showing a lot of promise, you're pulling things out of my hands, Chris's hands, you're asking a lot of questions, you're doing multiple open houses, like I'm looking for activity and I'm looking for drive and hustle from our agents, then there have been a couple that I've extended that invitation to, and I said, listen, let's get you through your first 30 days. Go shadow some appointments, go do 2 open houses every weekend, get your activity up. Let me see that your calls and follow-up costs are where they need to be. And then I'm going to get you onboarded for Zillow. So I actually did we just had a brand new baby agent join our team, and she just got certified in Zillow this last week. So she just, is taking her first Zillow calls, and we do have a certification process. But let me go back. So if they're an experienced agent, then a lot of times they are coming directly onto the Zillow Flex team. They do get certified in our Striker Squad, which means they learn the scripts that they need to in order to call our ponds, which I think is what Chris was talking about. And then once they've done that and they've gone through our listing training and all of our certifications that show them how to do things the Redux way, then I'll put them through the Zillow training. So we get them lined up with Zillow, they go through all the Zillow training modules, and then they meet with me for certification, which is about 30 minutes where I review, okay, do you understand, the ZHL pass off, right? And what that conversation looks like and when that happens. And let's role play the ALM script. How does that, how's that landing with you? What questions do you have? You have that memorized, right? So when we're doing this on Zoom, you're not looking at the script, in the corner of your screen, that you turn that off. So we go through that. And then I talk to them about, if they pass that and we talk through everything, then I will talk to them about their zip codes and get them off and running. And then I am closely monitoring new agents in their first month. I will listen to 2 or 3 calls a week and give them feedback. I'll sometimes jump on a call with them, or I'll call them.
Can I ask you a question? So just detail before you keep going, because I want you to keep going. Many teams do 5 leads, then I'm going to stop and we're going to coach up on that. 5 leads, and I'm going to stop and coach up on that. And then 10 leads, and then I'm going to coach up on that. And then if everything's good, now we go. How do y'all do it?
It's a great question. They are told up front that you get 15 leads, 10 to 15 leads. So if I don't catch it at 13, I catch you at 15, right? But somewhere in there, because sometimes a lead or 2 will sneak through. And I'm monitoring along the way. So I don't stop at 5 and then check in. I'm checking in throughout. I'm listening to calls periodically through their first 3 to 4 weeks. And depending on their lead flow, their availability, if they're paused or not, it might take them a couple months to get to 15, or it might take them a couple weeks. And so that's our benchmark, is 10 to 15. And after that, you get paused if you haven't converted something, you haven't gotten something under contract.
Okay, so I want to ask you, so you're going to give me 10 to 15, and I need to get something under contract before I get any more, or I need to convert to an appointment, and now I'm showing I can at least do that? You're saying no, transaction, period.
Has to be under contract. Yes. So we believe that after 15 leads, there's a contract in there to be had, and it's your job to go get it. And what I tell them is, if sometimes we get some complaints, as human nature. Oh, but this lead wasn't good, and this person wasn't. They already have an agent, and so they didn't sign up. Okay, I hear that, and that's why we have an entire Zillow Flex pond that you can call. So I don't care where your under contract comes from. It can come from calling the pond, or it can come from the active leads that you've just been assigned. But I want to, there's enough leads there. You should get something under contract.
Okay, so it's 15 new leads, but an unlimited, or however big the pond is, go fish in that as well, and get something under contract. So let me ask you, kind of fast forwarding. So congratulations, I've joined the Redux team, right? And I'm going to come in and I'm going to do what you're saying. I get my 15. Between that and the pond, I convert, and you're like, you know what? You're a rock star. Go get them, Tiger. From then on, how many leads is too many leads? Like, at what point are you going to pause me? Not for bad behavior, but because I got too many leads.
Yeah, I've had some agents ask to be paused. I have too many. I want to take a week or two. And I'm like, great. So you're right. It's not always a punishment. Sometimes it is if I feel like I'm not seeing you do the activity, right? If I might let you have a few more leads. I'm looking at every 15. For every 15, if I see that you're not getting it under contract, if I see that you've been doing the work, you're actively participating in Zillow weekly team meetings. If I see that you're doing the work, then I might look the other way a little longer and you get to 20 or 25, right? But if I see that you're not doing the work, you're not doing the follow-up, you're not updating the status in FUB or in the Zillow app, then I'm going to let you know, hey, I think I'm going to pause you. Let's take a week. Let's see what you can do.
Is that 15, maybe 20 if we're not looking, in a given time period? Because, like if I get 15 leads today, some portion of them is going to convert, some not, most are not, right? And eventually that's going to be going into the lead pond. But is it like in a month, a week, or, if you look up and see I've got, 200 leads in the lead pond, I'm doing some level of conversion for each of the 15 that you're giving me. How do you think about that? So
that would be assuming that so let me just make sure that you and I are talking apples to apples a little bit. So yeah. They are allowed to keep as many leads as they want, up to 100 under their name. So we've been talking about, so it doesn't go to the lead pond right away. So again, it's based on I'm monitoring, like, are you updating statuses? I will let you keep the lead under your name as long as you're following up if they're colder, like every 30 days, every couple months. But if I see that the lead's been sitting 4, 5, 6 months and it's in colder nurture, then we're going to move those to the pond and give them to the ISAs or to other people on the Zillow Flex team to warm back up. So there's a 100 lead max right now. We've played with changing that around, but that's what it is at the moment. And yes, after there's no time limit because, so for example, I have a top producing agent. He only wants one zip code. He gets 3 leads every few months, and he's still one of my top converters because he keeps working the leads from a year ago. He just keeps drilling those. So he's allowed to stay on Zillow Flex. So when you ask me a time frame, it really depends on the agent.
Before you came on, I was sharing with Chris about a conversation I had with another Zillow Flex team in South Carolina, and they do 5 at a time. And by the way, their conversion is amazing. And isn't that funny, right? I'm curious though. So if I'm understanding you correctly, so I'm going to come in, I'm going to start getting my leads. And as long as I'm doing what I should be doing as the agent, if there's no response rate from those consumers in a given time period, we're going to agree, okay, that goes into the lead pond and that doesn't ding me against my 100. And if there's 10 of those, I'm going to push those, keep my 90 that I'm working, and you're going to give me, 10 more. Did I get that right?
Yeah, they can make the choice, if they're like, Nicole, I really, this person told me to pound sand, or they have an agent. I'll say, okay, throw it into the pond. You don't have to work it. That's fine. But you're still responsible for getting that conversion.
Right. When you look at the spectrum of team leaders, there is the hardcore, rigid, kind of way of thinking about it, lead conversion and things like that, and then there's the more kind of I don't want my agents to look poorly upon Zillow leads, right? It already has a taint of 40% to it, right? And I want to keep my agents motivated on Zillow leads. Is that a challenge that you guys struggle with? And if so, how do you ride that line?
Chris, you want to take that question? I'm happy to answer. It is definitely a battle, for sure.
Well, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. I definitely have a few thoughts I'd like to add too, but I'd love to.
All right, this stays in EXP, right? Like it said in EXP stays in EXP. Is that right?
Yes.
All right. So here's what I would say. The way that when I joined the team as the director of sales in January, Chris told me, we kind of look at Zillow as a chained dog, right? Like it can bite us, but we want to be friends with it. So the agents know that too. We don't pretend like Zillow's our best friend. I do emphasize the benefits of the Zillow leads and the Zillow relationship, right? And yeah. I think we balance a line between being real that 40% kind of sucks a little bit, and there's benefits to that relationship as well. And so, for example, I have an agent, after your first 2 Zillow transactions, the third one's all yours, right? So we just had that happen in the span of 6 months. And so she's excited, and I'm making sure the team knows that. Like, hey guys, keep working those leads. Now that one's all yours, and I celebrate that. It's okay that doesn't count for Zillow for this month. I'm happy she gets the money.
I apologize if I missed it. When you say you work 2 and the third one's all yours, could you share a little bit more what you mean?
Yeah. So when we get a lead from Zillow, if they transact again within a 2-year period, or a direct family member does, so like they have a son or daughter, in that same household, does a transaction with us, we still owe Zillow the 40%. But on the third one, we don't owe Zillow anything. That's 100%. There's 40%, it doesn't apply anymore. So that's very appealing. And when we talk about
within the 2-year period, gotcha. Okay.
Right. 2 deals or 2 years.
That's right.
Yeah,
or 2 years and they haven't bought, that's then yours. So we have to look at what date that came in the CRM as well.
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking with a couple of teams, and what occurred to me is that referral fee is only a referral fee if you're not smart enough to realize that you just created a past client and work it like you should. Yeah. And the deals that you'll get from that are going to take care of whatever referral fee you paid on that initial deal. And so a lot of teams view Zillow as a supplemental way of building your past clients in your sphere. Right.
Yeah.
It's funny though. I asked the question to a few agents when they tell me about the long-term nurturing that they're doing. I said, "So do you ask them for referrals, even if they haven't done a deal with you? Do you ask them for referrals?" And they all looked at their shoes. And I thought, well, isn't that funny? When you're holding your agents accountable, what does that look like? So if I'm on your team, and I'm going and I'm doing my 15 max of 100. How often are we meeting as a group, specifically on the Zillow side? How often are we meeting as an individual? What sorts of things are we staring at scoreboard wise? What am I bringing to that conversation? What are you bringing to that conversation?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have a lot of different lead sources here at Redux, and Zillow is one of them. Our Zillow Flex team meets pretty much every week for 30 minutes and once a month for an hour instead of 30 in person. What are we doing for review and accountability? And we're doing skill training when we meet all together. We'll review, okay, what are you, role play, what are you saying to get the buyer agreement? That one comes up a lot. That one keeps coming up, right? It's always hard for agents to ask for that agreement. So we do that one a lot. This week I played a call. So I just random pick up somebody and we listen to their call and gave feedback as a group on that call. We'll review the scoreboard. Where are we against I'll pull up the spreadsheet that our Zillow rep gives us that I see. I'm very transparent with our team. I have no problem showing them where we're at. And we'll talk through, okay, well, where are we with our ZHL target for the month, and where are we for under contracts for this month as well. And we'll go around and share wins, and we call it, figure out who's closest to the money. So I'll ask, who has somebody that is getting close to transacting. And right now there's a Zillow incentive going on where the agents get 15%. They don't have to split it with EXP. It's a rebate that comes back straight to them. And there's a couple of them that are really close. So I've called each of them individually to talk through who they're working with and encourage them to get help on writing that offer so that it's a done deal for them. And our whole team will support them. They can call anybody in leadership on that. After that, it's me randomly on a Saturday afternoon or a Monday afternoon or whenever I am listening to their calls. So sometimes they get a call from me like, hey, just listen to your Zillow call. So I'm spot checking on the agents and listening to calls, and they know that I am listening. And we're going over, sometimes their individual performance falls in they're one-on-ones, and sometimes it is a one-off. So it just depends on who the agent is on our Zillow Flex team. But I'm not meeting with everybody one-on-one. I don't have the capacity for that at the current moment.
Okay. What's going to get me paused? What's going to get me kicked off?
We haven't kicked anybody off yet. So I think we've been tightening up the accountability since I came. We used to not have as strict rules around when you get paused. I think you would just get paused. And so we've created some criteria for that. And also, well, actually we did. You can get kicked off in a rolling 12-month period if you have not closed 5 Zillow Flex. This is new, 5 Zillow Flex under contract and closed. So yeah, so we're going to see this year. We just started that in March. And so we'll see who gets to stay and who doesn't. So this would be the first time we kick somebody off Zillow Flex. You get paused if you are not doing the work. If I see that you're not following up with leads, that's wasting our time and money as well as your own. And so that is going to be a pause, and it is going to feel a little punitive. But I need you to work the things that you're getting. Or we're having a conversation around, I don't go to punitive first. It's tell me what's going on. Why aren't you following up with your leads? Maybe there is something personal and they do need to be paused, and it's for a really good reason. But if it's not, and they're just not doing the work and that comes out, then I'm going to say, okay, well, we're pausing you. Once you get something under contract, then we can unpause you.
Okay. We're getting pretty close to time here, and so I want to turn it around on you guys. Imagine you had a room of the world's top Zillow Flex team leaders and directors of operations. What's the thing or 2 things that you would ask them to help you solve in your business?
When it comes to Zillow Flex, right?
Yeah, please.
I mean, I'll ask. The first one is there are definitely people that have a higher conversion rate than we do. I'd like to understand if their conversion is higher and their number of deals closed is higher, right? Because if they're closing, if they get 4 deals and they close, 4 a year, like that's not exciting. But, if they're, what are they doing? Because I do know that there are people that do more deals and close at a higher rate. In a market like we're in, we are in a very, very high tech, massively competitive market. And so I do know it's market centric on the conversion. I'd like to understand like what's working for them. Why are they closing at a much, much higher rate? That would be one for me.
Okay. How about you, Nicole?
I would ask the 2 questions that come to mind are, I think I see this show up with Zillow leads more than any other kind of lead that we serve is how do we, and this is maybe more of an industry question too, is how do we as an industry help educate the public and communicate to the public that we're not just a door opener? Because that's how we're being treated through Zillow. That's the one negative that I don't love. And so that's a conversation that I've started having with our agents, but I'd love to hear how other people are handling that, because I think it's a bigger systemic problem of how the public views real estate agents. And I think that hurts us when they're not willing to sign an agreement and we're willing to give all of our time and they're not willing to sign. So that's one thing. And then the other thing would be, I'm always interested in hearing what accountability structures are you using or what's working best on your team? What do your agents seem to respond well to? So just more of a general question.
Just both good questions. Yeah, you bring up an interesting point, Chris. The woman I was talking about, the team leader in South Carolina, that's Allison Greco. Do you know her?
I know the name, but I don't know Allison.
Yeah, so it's very high conversion rate, low lead flow because of the market she's in. She's in Bluffton, South Carolina, Beaufort, South Carolina, and Hilton Head, and expanding into Charleston. So low lead volume coming in, and so that's kind of forced her to be a very kind of cut and dry on how many leads you get. She gives you 5, right? But what's interesting, so she drops this on me in the middle of a conversation, and it just like floors me. She has her director of operations, and I say, tell me about your training and your onboarding. And they say, well, we've got this launch program that goes 90 days, and they use, kind of Keller Talk 30, 60, 90, right? Mm-hmm. And then the foundations, which goes beyond that, and then elite. And elite is like the top producers who don't necessarily want to go to the newbie kind of conversational meetings. She does stuff special for them, dinner at her house, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, how do I get out of the launch? And she said, well, if you'd asked me a year and a half ago, there was the problem. It was me. And by the way, how does she put it? I nurse back to health wildlife that's injured. It's literally a hobby of hers. And I knew exactly where she was going with this. And she was like, yeah, so people, we have an expectation that you're going to do 3 deals in your first 90 days. And I asked what percentage do, and she said, well, here's the problem. Taylor Swift, it's me. Hi, the problem is me. And so she kept giving people an extra 90 days, an extra 90 days, an extra 90 days, right? And then she brings on Nicole, and she's like, no, it's 90 days, and I'll think about giving you another 90 days, right? And I said, okay, well, so what percentage do 3 deals in the first 90 days? And she said, well, the last 6, 100%. Put that in context of our industry, guys. 100% are doing 3 transactions, pendings, whatever, but 3 transactions in the first 90 days. And I said, well, is that Zillow Flex, Sphere of Influence? And she said, yeah. Oh, we don't care. It's it, whatever it is. But their training program and Zillow's training program is such that they're not getting a lot of Zillow leads in their first 90 days, right? And what's interesting is if you could create a Frankenstein between y'all's team and hers team, because what I told her, she's got the scaling issue, right? She's in rural coastal markets, and her whole entire board is so many hundred agents, right? I think it's like 1,100 agents. And so figuring out how you get more people onto your team. And what I told her was the story of my friend Sherry Lewis at KW, who was in Owasso, Oklahoma, had a board of about 150 agents. In KW, to have a successful market center, you got to have at least 100 agents. And so how do you do that? Well, Sherry, you look up 5 years, 7 years later, her board is 300 some odd agents, and 150 of them are sitting in her office because Sherry created a pathway through training to be successful quickly. And now all the home spouses and blue collar workers that would have never considered real estate suddenly see a pathway. And I said to Allison, dude, you've cracked a code in an industry where 71% of agents didn't do a transaction last year. You're getting people to transactions in their first 90 days, which is sustainability. The problem with our industry is the valley of death that people perish through because of the time it takes to get productive. And if you could pour gasoline on that through scale, holy shit. And I said to her, sorry, forgive my Texan. I said to her, holy shit, that's an amazing thought. And it literally, for somebody who's made his living trying to help people get past that valley of death and then go beyond it, that's an amazing thing. And you guys have kind of the scale thing, 40 to 80 agents in 1 year. If I were you, and I'm happy to make that introduction, I'd go buy her and her director of operations a cup of coffee, and you guys share what you're doing, and then pick your brain more.
I'd love to chat with her. Yeah, please make the introduction. I'd love that.
I will. I'll do that. And then, and knows a perfectly acceptable answer. There's some feedback there. It knows a perfectly acceptable answer. I'm going to ping you guys probably early next week. I'd love to see anything you care to share with me about your onboarding and training. Love to see what that looks like. And again, if that's not an issue, if that's not the case, you don't want to share that, I get it. But if you do, I'll also share with you what I'm seeing from other folks. One last question, and I'll ask this in the Slack. Don't have to say yes or no today. And again, no is a perfectly acceptable answer. I'd love to talk to your top converter and ask them 20 questions about how they do that. Yeah. Thank you both. You got capital at my bank. Anytime you want to make a withdrawal, please let me know how I can say thank you for this. Okay.
And actually, Nicole, I don't know if you know this, but Brian kind of built maps before whatever over at KW. Nicole was a business maps coach over there. So yeah, anyway, there was kind of
I worked with the teams. I'm a pretty face. I don't do the work. Diana was certainly the visionary there, and my teams helped her bring that to fruition. I was just in the background saying maybe a little to the left. But yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I spent 15 years there. How long were you there?
Well, I worked with Abe Shreve. I didn't do regular maps. I did business maps. So I worked with Abe to launch that. And I was there from, what year is that? 2019 to last year. Yeah.
Yeah. So I left in 2017. Originally, Sean Kokoska and Don Hobbs had tried to kind of launch that out with the one thing. And hit some road bumps along the way. But that's great. That's awesome. Yeah, I was there from 2002 to 2017.
Well, you weren't a just. The people behind the scenes are the ones making the magic happen, right? The person in front can't do it without the people behind them. So that means you did a really great thing.
Well, I just had a fancy title and took naps at my desk. Everybody else did all the work.
It's so funny because you guys I know you guys make all this stuff happen. And one of my favorite quotes of all time, one of my close friends and mentor, he built this massive satellite company that sold for $1 gazillion. And I would always go and hang out with him and his director of operations. And it was so funny because Bill, his DO, would always say, he's like, Joe would have some idea and he's like, yeah, nothing's impossible for the person that doesn't have to do it.
What? The Tuesday, right? You guys can do this by Tuesday. Just don't say no yet. Just think about it, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right.
Well, Brian, you're the man. Fun to hang with you as always.
Nice to meet you.
Always a pleasure. Nice to meet you too, Nicole. All right, guys. Happy Friday. Have fun this weekend. And